again, good morning, everyone. And if we could go to the next screen. So thank you for introducing yourselves. My name is Kristie Wright, and I work in the Experiential Learning Hub, which is one of the 6 units that live in the Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching. And I'm joined today by a few colleagues. One, Taryn Cicchelli, who is the project coordinator for this Pathways Bursary, but I'll let her also introduce herself. And my other colleague, Jasmine Cherian, who is a projects and operations specialist with the Experiential Learning Hub. Not here today is our colleague Anamika Beznoth, who is assuming a similar role to me as project co-lead. And so Anamika's actually doing some advocacy work around we're integrated learning right now up in Ottawa. So we're sad she won't be able to join us today. But I'll just quickly say that this is the second year that TMU has offered this bursary. And last year it was run through the Experiential Learning Hub in great partnership with the Faculty of Community Services because a lot of FCS students are eligible for this funding. So when we decided to apply for this money again this year, we did it in a co-model with both the Faculty of Community Services and the Experiential Learning Hub. So that's why you'll see both of us represented. That said, this bursary is for undergraduate students across the university. So all different faculties are encouraged and welcome to have their students apply. So I will pause and let Taryn introduce herself.
Hi everyone, I'm Taryn. I'm the project coordinator for this bursary. I've been working in the Faculty of Community Services at TMU for the last few years and helping out different programs, early childhood studies, midwifery, in the dean's office. I'm also an alumni. I studied child and youth care here at TMU myself, and I run the Terry Project, which is an initiative that I connect with students in FCS, with seniors in long-term care homes, and I run that out of the Dean's Office of FCS as well. I'm happy to be here and share about the bursary with you all.
Okay. And Jasmine, do you want to say hello for 2 seconds?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jasmine Cherian. I work as the operations and project specialist on the team, the EL team, sorry. And I'm just kind of supporting this program in the back end with the website development and comms. So if you've seen our communications, that was some of my work, supported that, and just here to help.
Thanks, Jasmine. All right, let's go on to our next slide. So as we do at TMU, I just wanted to offer a land acknowledgement as the start of our session. So Toronto is in the Dish with One Spoon territory. The Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. The dish, or sometimes known as the bowl, represents what is now Southern Ontario, from Great Lakes to Quebec and from Lake Simcoe to the United States. We all eat out of this dish, and all of us share this territory with only one spoon. That means that we have to share the responsibility of ensuring the dish is never empty, which includes taking care of the land and the creatures that we share with it. Importantly, there are no knives at the table, representing that we must keep the peace. I myself, as a settler in Taka, Toronto, acknowledge the many ways that I have received and continue to benefit on a daily basis from the land in which I am privileged to work from, live on, eat, and drink from, in which I now raise my children on as part of the next generation and try to do so in good ways. And I encourage us to think as we are students and faculty and staff who support students in doing experiential learning, the land in which that learning takes place and how we build reciprocity and understanding as students go out into community and do their work on this land. Okay. So you folks are here, and we're very thrilled to announce that the Pathways to Equity Bursary has launched once again. It opened on September, I want to say 24th, and is going to be closing on October the 31st. So we are encouraging faculty and staff to let students know to apply for this sooner than later, because October 31st, while it feels like it's a month away, is going to be here pretty shortly. And we're also reviewing applications as they come in. And so because there's so many eligibility requirements that need to be taken into consideration, and often for Taryn to be looking into, it's important that we don't only wait till October 31st to start reviewing. And so Taryn's actively already looking at what's coming in, and so please encourage students to apply as soon as possible. And I'm going to hand it over to Taryn.
So our overview of our time spent together, we just went over our team, and so we'll talk about the bursary, some of the goals, eligibility, both for students and the placement sites, the process for students to apply, and what we need from staff and faculty and to support and get the word out. We'll have time at the end for questions. So the funders. So the funding for this bursary has come from two places. So for the domestic students, CEWIL Canada, CEWIL Canada's Innovation Hub has donated or has provided this money. And CEWIL is a national organization who has received funding from the federal government's Innovative Work Integrated Learning Initiative Fund. So the criteria for eligibility is largely set out by the federal government. However, CEWIL is accountable to them for meeting this criteria. And where possible, CEWIL has extended flexibility to see that as many students as possible are able to get this money. And then for international students, there is a small fund with similar criteria. And this funding has been provided by the Office of the Provost here at TMU. An overview. So the Pathways to Equity Work Integrated Learning Bursary is aimed to reach students who identifies as being part of one or more equity deserving groups who are completing a work integrated learning experience, an unpaid experience in the fall semester at TMU. And we're really aiming to reduce the financial barriers that prevent students from engaging in these unpaid WIL experiences. And last year, TMU had this bursary as well, and the team gave out $300,000 to across 180 students at the university. So we're aiming to keep up the good work this year. So the goal is to reach roughly 200 equity deserving undergraduate students who are completing a WIL in this fall semester, and really aiming to offset the cost of completing a WIL. So some of the costs talking about are things like travel, lost income from paid work time, childcare, elder care, materials, supplies, professional fees, those health-related costs, things like your vulnerable sectors check, all things like that, and there's more. So the process, so step one is to check eligibility. So students can look at their eligibility and the eligibility of their WIL site. We'll get into that later on. Step two is the application process. And so for this bursary, students apply on award spring, but it's a little bit different than maybe other bursaries or scholarships they've applied for on award spring, because this one has two parts to it. So there's the typical award spring part of the application, but then within that there is a link to a Google form that students must complete. And so both the award spring questions and the Google form questions completed together creates a full application. So it's the 2 parts, but students can access this on award spring. And once that's done, they can wait until the bursary closes on October 31st, and then after that can expect to wait 3 to 4 weeks to hear back. And then step 4, for successful applicants, they will hear back about their bursary funds sometime in December. And so far, I've been receiving some emails, questions about Award Spring. Some students are having trouble using Award Spring. They're not seeing it come up on their dashboard. And this might be because they haven't used Award Spring before, so their profile is not complete, and if it's not complete, they won't see everything. So if that's the case for you, just make sure that you have a completed profile on Award Spring, and then it should be right there. Yeah. But if your students have questions, they are very much encouraged to email me at the pathwaybursary@torontomu.ca email address. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has. We're really aiming to maintain a barrier-free application process. So really trying to make a smooth and a supportive process. So students can email, we could set up a time to meet to go over the application together. And then also on reading week, I'm planning to have some office hours so students can schedule a time and we can go over the application together, or I can just help answer any questions. So we're really trying to make this straightforward and simple and very doable. So funding amounts. So there's 2 possible amounts, and these are based on the hours that students spend at their WIL site in the fall. So students that make 60, which is the minimum, so 60 to 120 hours at their WIL site in the fall would be qualified for the $1,000. And then students that make more than 120 hours at their WIL site in the fall would be qualified for the 1,800 amount. If additional funds are available, students in the 60 to 120 range may be considered for a higher amount. And for this application, again, we want it to be barrier-free and straightforward, so proof of expenses are not required as part of this application. Okay. Student eligibility. So there's a few pieces to this. One of the large pieces is that students would be identified as being part of one or more equity deserving groups. So we have a list here of the equity deserving groups. And in the application process, this is presented as a list similar to this, and students would just check off which ones they identify with. So they don't have to disclose additional information. But students who don't want to self-identify with one of these categories, they do have a choice to say they prefer not to answer, but we encourage students to, if they can. And for the CEWIL funds, which again is for the domestic students, students must be a Canadian citizen, have a permanent resident, or be a person with refugee protection, and legally entitled to work in Canada. For the funds coming from the Provost, for our international students, they still must be eligible to work in Canada. And again, we want to reach international students, but we do have a small amount. So we'll move along. The student eligibility. So in addition to identify as being part of one of the equity deserving groups, students must be enrolled in an undergraduate program at TMU. They must be currently enrolled in a course offering a WIL experience, have an unpaid WIL experience with a minimum of 60 hours in the fall semester, and be eligible to work in accordance with provincial and territorial regulations. I'll hand it over to Kristie.
Thanks, Taryn. So I'm going to share a little bit about the community or industry partner or host eligibility. And this piece is really important because even if a student meets all of the criteria that Taryn just spoke about, so they have all the curriculum pieces in place and they identify as equity deserving, equity denied, if they don't have a partner that they're working with this semester who falls into this eligibility criteria, unfortunately, they will not be able to receive the bursary. So again, this is one of the criteria, like we had mentioned at the beginning, that is very heavily driven through what our funders' criteria has been. Partners for this can include private organizations such as businesses, incorporated or unincorporated bodies, or for-profit band councils. They can also be nonprofit organizations, and we find a lot of the organizations who students were partnered with last year were actually nonprofit. So this can include community groups, charitable groups, voluntary organizations, unions, not-for-profit band councils, and non-governmental organizations. So if the organization has a charitable number, even if it is mostly funded through the government, the organization would be deemed eligible. And to confirm that, we would double check with the Canadian Revenue Agency's website to make sure that the charitable number is there. And in some cases, the host, the industry, or the community partner may be managed by a larger organization like a school board or hospital. And in those cases, we would need to search for the charitable arm of the school board or the division under the CRA to see if they would be possible partners. In terms of ineligible hosts, our WIL partners, unfortunately, post-secondary institutions are not eligible, with the exception if there's entrepreneurial WIL that's taking place. Federal, provincial, territorial, municipal governments would not qualify. Members of the House of Commons and Senate, organizations that engage in partisan political activities, financial sector employees that have over 500 employees, and organizations for which the students are paying a service are typically, they wouldn't be considered an eligible WIL partner for this particular funding. So on the next slide, I appreciate that it's hard to see the fine print there, but it is a decision-making tree around which partners could or could not be eligible. We're happy to share this over email in a larger format post our conversation today, but this just really breaks down if you're working with a student and they have questions whether or not their WIL partner may qualify, it gives you a little bit of a map to be able to walk through with them. What's key is that if there's any questions or doubt, please don't hesitate to reach out to Taryn directly, and we will consult as a group to see if they're eligible. We and the funders, CEWIL themselves, want to see as many students as possible be covered by this or be eligibility under this. So if there is possibilities, we will explore those thoroughly with you to see how we can try to make things work. So in terms of what we're asking of faculty, instructors, and staff, I think the number one thing that you could do to support this program is promote it to your students where you believe that there's eligible WIL taking place. So in your program, your school, your faculty, helping us get the word out is, students come first to you and they know, they trust you. So helping us to do that promotion would be greatly appreciated. If students have questions, we're not expecting you as staff to go figure out the answers. Please have them come chat with Taryn. They can reach out through the Pathway Bursary email and we will support them. If you have opportunities, either through meetings that happen in your school or your program, like school council, or if you have information sessions where you're covering other materials with students, we'd ask that you please share it with them there. And if you have students who you believe are eligible and who have shared their need for financial support, please encourage them to take advantage of applying for this. So we can go to the next slide. The EL Hub and FCS has developed a frequently asked questions document, both for students and for staff and faculty. Both are on our website, and we'll share the link. If we're not able to share it right now, we'll share it with you post this conversation. And so we've anticipated the questions that students have had, and based on our experience last year, we've included kind of information that we heard was most helpful for students to have. Thanks, Jasmine, for sharing that. So if they can't get their question there, again, reach out to Taryn and we're happy. And we will add to this list as things come in, and we need more. So. And lastly, just to say, promotional materials, we've developed social media cards and Instagram posts. You may have seen, if you've been around campus, that we're showing things on the TV screens. And so the social media deck, those are available on the EL Hub website as well. If your department or your school is active with social media, we ask that you would please promote that as well. And Taryn, was there anything you wanted to add to that?
Just that our student information sessions are this week. So tomorrow is one, and then on Thursday is the other. And students can reach out to set up a time with me if they have further questions.
Great. And if you want to reach out, here are all of our individual email addresses. Again, going to the main Pathway Bursary will get you linked up to one of us. Yeah. So that's the end of what we have planned to share with you. I think what we could maybe do now is we could stop our recording and then we could ask our participants if they have any questions.